Good morning, everyone, and you're all very welcome to the launch of Book Magic. So my name is Thelma Buran. I'm a health promotion officer with the HSE, and I'm also the HSE representative on Mayo Children and Young Services Committee. So also, as well as representing the HSE on the main committee, I chair the Early Years Active and Healthy subgroup. And Book Magic, which you're going to hear about more today, is one of our projects. So just to give you some background, the role of Mayo and Mayo Children and Young People Services Committee is to support the implementation of the National Children's Strategy at local level. So Mayo CYPSC provides a forum for joint planning, improved delivery and coordination of services and supports for children, young people and their families in County Mayo. Mayo CYPSC has members from the community, voluntary and statutory sector. And Book Magic is a partnership project of Mayo CYPSC, Mayo County Library and TUSLA, and it was developed as part of the CYPSC Mayo Health and Wellbeing Plan 0 to 3 years. This plan was published in 2018, and 2 strategic priorities identified in the plan led us to the development of the Book Magic project. So the first priority was promoting the benefits of reading and developing activities to increase the use of libraries. And the other priority related to Book Magic was supporting parents and promoting mental health. So in 2019, this project was set up, and this project is led by Darina Molloy, who's the Senior Executive Librarian with Mayo County Library, and Tiernon, who's a network coordinator with TUSLA. Both Darina and Anne-Marie will give you presentations in a couple of minutes. Darina will outline the background of the project and the role of the library in its development. And Anne-Marie will let you know how she uses the books in her work to support family. So I think you'll all agree after both presentations that it couldn't be led by 2 more enthusiastic people. So in 2020, we asked Josephine Lally to evaluate our Book Magic project, as we knew from the feedback we'd received from families that the books were making a difference to children and their families' lives. We knew the books were giving families an opportunity to spend time together, help their children put their feelings into words and share them with their families. So I suppose we all know at this stage that that is a really important skill for emotional and mental well-being, the ability to share feelings and put them into words. This event today provides us with the opportunity to launch this report and bring it to you, our wider audience. And after the presentations, we will have a panel answering your questions about the project. Darina and Anne-Marie will be joined by Sinead Monaghan, and Sinead is a senior speech and language therapist with the HSE. She has used the books a lot in her work, as well as some of her colleagues. And Linda McNulty works in Westport Family Resource Centre, and she coordinates the use of Book Magic in Westport Family Resource Centre. So it'll also be very interesting to hear things from Linda's perspective, because rather than using the books in a one-to-one setting, she is using them in a group setting in Westport. So both Sinead and Linda will have also very valuable insights into the use of the project. And during the presentations and the panel discussion, what you can all do is use the question and answer function to ask the presenters and panelists questions about the project. So I'll be keeping an eye on the questions, and I'll direct them to the appropriate panelists to answer them. And just to reiterate again, this event is being recorded. So just for your information. So I'll hand you over to Anne-Marie, or hand you over to Darina, who's going to give us the background to the project. And like I say, if you have any comments or questions, you can just pop them up in the chat, and I'll direct them as appropriate then to the panelists. So thanks, Darina.
Okay, thank you, Tana. Thanks, everybody. Welcome. I'm delighted to see so many of you here. I'm just going to start my presentation now here. And sorry, now I can't see the top of my. Bear with me, sorry, there's all kinds of things covering the top of my screen, so here we go. Okay, so Book Magic, it's all in the name really, I suppose. I wouldn't be much good at my job if I didn't believe essentially that books are magic. I do believe that. I believe that ever since I was a little girl myself and a fervent reader, and I grew up to be an even more avid reader. So how did it come about? Well, it came about actually, there was a national library initiative called the Right to Read Initiative, and basically what that was just about promoting reading and access to books for everybody. And in the first couple of years of that programme, it focused mainly on children and families. So I was appointed Right to Read coordinator for Mayo County Library. And as part of that, I had to go and kind of find partner organisations in Mayo that were working with families and children and try and sort of get the library message out to them. So CYPSC were an obvious choice of partner, and I would have spoken to them very early in the beginning. And from sort of networking with CYPSC and a couple of other people they were working with, the library then, or myself, were invited to join the Early Years Committee. And that was really interesting because that got me around the table with many services, speech and language service, social work, family support workers, maternity, perinatal, psychology. It was incredible. There was an incredible breadth of knowledge and experience around that table, and it was very interesting to me just to listen to what they had to say. One of the things I suppose that they kept saying was a lot of the services felt that if attachment was better promoted to people, parents and children, that a lot of problems or a lot of things that were leading people to engage with services would be headed off at the pass. I don't need to tell you guys this is where you're working, you know more about it than I do, but that was quite interesting. And the other issue that came up a lot was emotional literacy. And when some of the support workers were working with the families, they felt that the parents themselves didn't have the language to explain things to their children, or didn't have the language to comfort them, or to be able to sort of navigate them through tricky situations. So I suppose from my point of view, I was seeing more and more books coming into the library that dealt with exactly that, dealt with emotions, dealt with feelings, and in a way that was really simple and explained very well to children. So I started kind of bringing a couple of books to the meetings, and the response to them was hugely enthusiastic. People were saying, oh yeah, these are great, these are fantastic. But there's only one problem. And I was like, oh, what's the problem? Well, the problem is, our families don't really feel the library is for them. That was hard to hear, but I got it. So I suppose the next kind of idea we were trying to tease out was, well, okay, if the families won't come into the library for these books, how do we get the books to the families? And we just kind of went one step further with that, and we thought, well, why don't we give them to the people who are meeting with these families, the people who are working with them? They'd be ideally placed to chat to them about the books and explain how they might work. So that's what happened. We had very small budget initially. CYPSC gave us a small budget to start off. We bought around about 130 books. We had a launch here in the library in early 2019. The response was very good. I remember saying to Darla midway through the launch, so the books that we have left over today, will I just take them and then people can contact me? And he said, yeah, absolutely. And we looked around at the end of the launch. There wasn't a book left. They had all gone. It was fantastic. There was a lot of enthusiasm in the room for the books. I mean, we went through a few of the books and kind of what they were about. And I think people could see, you could see people were getting it. Yeah, that's actually good. This could work, and that could work for this child, and that kind of thing. So we discussed initially, we got feedback from some of the people who'd taken the books and worked with them, Anne-Marie included. And I remember that meeting, we met, the Book Magic Committee met, and that feedback was extremely powerful. It was very emotional. It really struck home, and it sort of became, this could work. These books could really work. So we wanted to get more. So I remember going to my boss and just saying to him, I gave him some examples of the feedback, and he said, we have to find money for this. We have to. This is incredible. So we applied for funding from the Dormant Accounts Fund, and the idea behind that is they supply money for projects that will help people who are marginalised and disadvantaged. And whatever about socioeconomic backgrounds, I think that people who are struggling with, children struggling with emotions, or, struggling with difficult situations, that by definition makes you marginalised and disadvantaged. So we got the funding. We were able to buy more books. So then we had another launch planned for last year, just I think coming up to March. But anyway, here we are finally. We're working with various partner organisations, CYPSC, as I said, obviously a big one, and Thelma in the HSE and Health Promotion, and TUSA, and the Family Resource Centres have been great as well, and Mayo Traveller Support Groups. So there's been, quite a few local partners. That's been great. this is just a quick glimpse. Anne-Marie's going to go into a lot more detail about the books, but I have to pay a special tribute to Ruby's Worry, because I really feel, from a personal point of view, this is the book that kicked everything off, because so it's a book about, as you see, Ruby, a little girl with a worry. That's her little blob of a worry there. As she goes through the book, and it's beautifully illustrated, and really the language is very simple and very accessible. So as she goes through her daily life, going to school and everything, the worry gets bigger and bigger, and you see it begins to take over the whole page. And then eventually the colour leaches out of the rest of the illustration. And towards the end, Ruby meets a little boy, and she sees that he has a worry. And the two of them sit on a bench together, and they talk about their worries, which then shrink and disappear. But it's not, it's not promising the impossible, because it does say at the end of the book, everybody gets worries. They do come back from time to time, but the best thing to do about them is talk. So that, I thought, was very graphic, vivid, simple. We've given that to a lot of people. I mean, I think that's probably one of the mainstays actually in every Book Magic bag. I think everybody gets Ruby's Worry at some stage. The next book is Fergal Is Fuming. That's about a little dragon who has extreme anger issues, sets everything on fire, annoys everybody, his teachers, his parents, his friends. He sets fire to everything. Eventually his mother sits him down. She teaches him to count to 10 slowly. And then he realizes that if he stores his firepower and he doesn't just let it off all the time, he has enough firepower to power a hot air balloon ride for his friends. So great ending there, and sort of like anger management techniques at a very basic level. And then the final book I just want to point out is I Say Ooh, You Say Ah. And the reason this was chosen, as well as we've books dealing with worries, anger, illness, bereavement, parental separation, I also felt, and I do feel very strongly, humor is hugely important and can be distracting and can be a great way just to get in other things. So humor, we would use funny books a lot doing story time in the library. So we have a selection of what I would think are quite funny books and have gone down very well at story time. I Say Ooh, You Say Ah. It's just a very simple book. You have to follow the instructions on the page. So it's a great fun. It's a really fun one to read with kids. And there's usually great feedback when we do that one at story time. So that's just some of the books. As we said, the feedback was fantastic, to the extent then that we commissioned the actual report, which Josephine carried out. And Marie is going to go into the feedback more, so I'm not going to talk too much about that, except to say that I suppose I always believed in the power of books, and the power of these books particularly. When the feedback started to come in, it just really sort of it acknowledged that this is what we hoped they might do. This is what we thought they might do. They actually did even more than we thought, and they helped kids far older than the normal picture book age range. So we're just really excited about it, and yeah, it's just, like I say, it's been a fantastic project to be involved in. Where do we go next? Well, we've been chatting about different things. You know, a couple of people have raised the issue of maybe books for some older children. So that's something that we're looking at. I would love to think that we could maybe bring parents in when we can bring parents in, but that we could bring them in maybe and do story time training and just show them, you know, how it's not just about getting from page 1 to the last page. There's maybe breaking off for little side conversations or using something in a book to bring up a conversation about something else. We'd also like to do events maybe for Book Magic families and just to maybe show them that the library is for them, and that, you know, whatever preconceptions they had are long gone. And it's not a place anymore where you have to hush, 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 and, you know, you can't touch this and you can't do that, and if you lose a book you're in big trouble. It's not like that anymore. It's changed hugely. So I would love to invite those families in. We're also going to have a Book Magic collection in all of our libraries, so that even if you're not a Book Magic family, I still think that Book Magic can do its magic for any family. So that's something we're going to do. We're going to have the books available to be borrowed. And we were also talking with CYPSC maybe about the possibility of rolling this out nationally. And I know the LGMA, our parent organisation, are very, very interested in that idea. And I've spoken to library colleagues about it. So who knows, maybe we can get something going there. So that's it. Thank you very much for listening to me. That was just a picture from the first launch, and as you can see, shiny, happy faces, shiny, happy books, and yeah, it was a lovely day. So if anyone has any questions or they want to know how to get their hands on Book Magic books, please feel free to contact me. You might see in my background just about there that that's the Book Magic bookcase behind me. We have an order in for more books as well. And, you know, also if anyone has any feedback on books they've come across that are not on the Book Magic list, but that they think should be, please let me know, because I'm always happy to add more titles. It's a work in progress, this list. It's not finished, not by any stretch of the imagination. It's just starting. So thanks a lot.
Okay, Darina, thanks so much for your presentation, and there's messages of congratulations coming in here to you, Darina, from Dublin City Library. So well done on your presentation, and thanks so much for your commitment and enthusiasm for the project. So I am going to move on now to invite Anne-Marie Tiernon, and Anne-Marie is a network coordinator with TUSLA. And Anne-Marie is going to tell us all about how she uses the Book Magic project in her work with families and the huge benefits she's gained from using it. So I'm just going to screen share Anne-Marie's presentation now. So if you just give us a couple of minutes, and Anne-Marie will chat to you then.
Okay, thanks, Thelma. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, okay. So my name's Anne-Marie. I've worked in family support for 17 years. I started with the Western Health Board years ago, then the HSE, and now with TUSLA. So I moved into child protection just a year ago. And for the last 2 years, I've brought Book Magic with me everywhere I've gone at work. I'm an enthusiastic book reader like Darina. I love reading to children, best crack ever. And I'm a Book Magic advocate. So I've been involved since the beginning of the CYPSC project, and I was one of those workers who came to the library and said, look, my families don't want to come in here. They don't think the library's for them. They don't see themselves in here. And even though it's free to join, that didn't matter. It wasn't for them in their head. So we brought the library to some of the marginalised families that I'm working with around Mayo. So I'm going to tell you a little bit today about the families that I've worked with that found their own little bit of magic and their own comfort through reading, but through reading the books that Darina picked out for this project. So Thelma's going to help me here with the slideshow. I'm going to start with Ruby. Darina has mentioned Ruby already to us. This is Ruby's worry. She'll pop up here now in a minute in her little blue dress and her stripy tights. So very appealing book. This book I've given to most families I work with, but I'm going to start with an example from a 5-year-old boy who was living with illness in his home. His mom was very, very ill. His parents had separated and his mother died. There was a lot of emotional turmoil in this little boy's life, and we gave him a little bag of books. He was very drawn to Ruby's worry. So we met with this little boy probably 3 months after he had finished with the books to chat to him for the purposes of the evaluation. And when I asked him what was his favourite page in the book, he immediately opened 2 pages near the end where Ruby, with her big yellow worry, finds a little boy sitting on a bench with his blue worry, and she talks to him about her worry. And he was able to tell me why that page was his favourite page. So it meant something to him. His dad told us that, first of all, the book is very colourful, it's very appealing, you want to pick it up and flick through it. He found that it really settled his son when he sat in with it. He was very peaceful with it, and it reassured him that there are other kids out there who have worries, other kids whose mammies haven't died, but they have worries too. So he didn't feel so alone. That's Ruby. We're going to move on then to the next book, The Magic Moment by Niall Breslin. Brezzy, the guy who seems to be all over the telly for lots of reasons. He works with children with anxiety, and he was in a pop band. I can't remember the name of the band, but you'll probably know who I'm talking about. So Brezzy has this book called The Magic Moment. Now, this book is in our pile, but I actually had read it and felt a little bit wordy for the younger kids, you know, the 4, 5, 6-year-olds, a little bit choked with words, mightn't appeal to them. But in fact, I have a great example of working with a 5-year-old boy where his granny was caring for him. He would have had sensory issues. He found transitions very difficult, so didn't like the walking into school and leaving Granny, didn't like the going to bed because it was another transition he found difficult. And Granny told me that she found this book worked wonders with him. So she used it mostly at bedtime with him. And he was able to show me a page near the end where there's a little poem. And with this poem, you have to think of a happy memory. Granny reads the poem. He lies in bed, he puts his 2 fingers and thumbs together like you would in a yoga pose, closes his eyes, and he listens to Granny reading the poem to him. And our play therapist with TUSLA, Carol Duffy, the wonderful Carol Duffy, has always told us that rhyming can be brilliant for regulating children. So this book brought a little bit of rhyming, little bit of fun in the language. It's very, very colourful, and it appealed to this boy's sensory needs because he had to hold his fingers and thumbs together for those few minutes while he was listening to the story. Granny said to us this was a fantastic book for settling him at night time, and sometimes she used it during the day as well. So I was wrong about this book. It worked very well with the younger child. So our next book is, Darina mentioned Fergal Is Fuming already. Fergal is very popular amongst our kiddies. Ruby is our bestseller, but I'd say Fergal comes in there just behind her. So this is about a dragon that when he's told what to do, he explodes, and he needs to find ways to cool down, which he does by the end of the book. So I gave a bag of books to a 6-year-old boy who he was separated from his mum. She was hospitalized long term, and Dad was feeling quite overwhelmed. There was a lot of uncertainty for this little boy in his life at the time. He was quite demanding and volatile himself and was prone to explosions. So gave him a bag of books. He picked out Fergal Is Fuming as his favorite. He was very, very drawn to this book. His dad read it to him nightly, so they enjoyed that attachmenty part of lying in the bed together under the covers, reading a book that was about anger, but it was quite settling for this child. He devoured it. He kept extending his loan with me on the book. He handed me back all the others and said, "Can I keep this for another few weeks, Anne-Marie?" In the end, we let him keep his own copy. Our play therapist again, Carol, would have said to me that this book was sense making for this child. For whatever was going on for him, it made sense to him. He recommended it to me for other boys and girls, and he said to me, "Give that to boys and girls the same age as me who are feeling mad all of the time." So he still has his copy. Then we move on to another family I worked with, where there's a 7-year-old boy. There was a very ill sibling in this house. So Mammy was separated from the 7-year-old quite a bit because she had to go to a lot of hospital appointments with the baby. This little boy, very good reader with his school books, had an interest in reading, but there probably wouldn't have been much time for bedtime stories and that because the house was under pressure with medical appointments. So I just gave this family a bag of mixed books. Some of them are there on the screen, and it wasn't that one book in particular appealed to this little boy, but the parents came back to me after the first night of reading them with them and were astounded at what they learned about their son. They knew he was a good reader, but they were very surprised at how articulate and how confident he was with books that weren't school readers. He was very articulate about his emotional, about how he felt about their family situation at the moment, and he was able to bring that out through some of these books. So that all came after the first night of using the books with him. So the parents were very proud, very taken aback, and very reassured that reading and books would help this young boy articulate how he was doing on that particular day with all that was going on in the house, and brought a lot of comfort at bedtime for both parents and the boy. So our next slide then will show you another one that Darina mentioned. Now this book, I say ooh, you say ah. This book was thrown in for a bit of crack and a bit of daftness by Darina because we felt we can't have them all based on, very emotional, challenging themes for the children. So this was the daft one. But this one has turned out to be a little treasure. So it's an interactive book. Everything I say, you must do. So when I say ooh, you must say ah back to me. Bit of fun between a parent and child, or between two kids. When you see an ant on the page, you have to say underpants. So there's a little bit of toilet humor in there, which is essential for children of this age group because they're using that language anyway and laughing out loud at the toilet words. So our play therapist, Carol, in Tusla, she actually used this book with a teenage girl. So went to an age group that we hadn't targeted at all. And she said that it was powerful, the results that it had with the teenage girl, because this book it helps a child to release oxytocin. It helps them forget themselves for a few minutes because they have to remember what it is that they're seeing and saying from the page. So Carol used it with a teenager who would have been very loaded and very frozen with anger, not in a rage, but a girl that was holding it all in, very ordered, very obsessional. And for a few minutes when she used this book with her first, she was able to just let herself go. So great for regulating a child that may be feeling like that. And this was an older child, as I said. It surprised us that it worked well with her age group. It was a huge release and great for a child that just might need a little break for themselves. So our last book, I'm going to come back to her again. Where would we be without Ruby and her little blue Guna? I have to mention her again because I've just so many examples of where families have benefited from using this book. I gave this book to a family where there was a lot of children. I gave them a bag of books aimed at the younger children in the house, the under fives, but a 10-year-old girl in this home who had an irrational fear of being taken into foster care because Tusla were involved in her life. She would have been a little girl who used to cry on her way to school if she thought that there was a Tusla worker coming to visit the house that day. She took this bag of books and discovered that she loved Ruby's Worry. She used to sit herself into the kitchen table and set it up like it was her little office, take out all the books, go through them all, but each and every time she would stick with Ruby's Worry, and she's another child who actually devoured it. Her 14-year-old sister said to me, every time I went into the kitchen, Anne-Marie, she had Ruby's Worry out and said to me, I'm reading my favourite book again, don't disturb me. Her mum said to me that when she got into this book, she noticed that it was very calming for her daughter. She was less wound up. She got lost in it. And she forgot her worry for a little while. And when she was finished with the book, she very quietly stopped reading it as much, put it back in the bag, in the lovely book bag that we have to go with these books, and she gave it back to us. So she was done and she was happy to separate with it. So you can't go wrong with Ruby. What I've learned from using these books with families is that I shouldn't have an age cut off for who I feel these books would appeal to. It doesn't stop at 4, 5, 6, 7. I think there are older children out there who might have an emotionally younger age that they definitely will appeal to it at a period in their lives. I have found that if I bring the books into homes where the worries for the children are still very new and very pressured, and if they haven't been addressed yet, that the books don't work in those houses. If the parents are very distracted, they're just not able to get into it with their children. I think there's a little window to watch out for where the worries are starting to reduce and where we can bring the books in and everybody will be able for them and will be able to gain from them. So look, I hope if any of you out there are going to start using these books in your toolbox at work, I hope you enjoy them as much as I do, and that they become very much part of your everyday toolbox in your work with families around Mayo. So thanks for listening, folks.
Thelma, you're on mute. Thelma, you're on mute.
Yeah. Hi, sorry. Thanks very much, Anne-Marie. As you've all realised, Anne-Marie is an excellent advocate for the project, as well as Darina. Apologies for some of the technical glitches along the way, including me not knowing how to unmute myself. It doesn't happen very often, as any of you who knows me will be able to will be able to vouch for. So now I'd just like to welcome Sinead Monaghan and Linda from Westport FRC. I'd like you welcome you girls to the panelists. And just to let you know, there's some complimentary comments coming in there, Anne-Marie. Great overview of the books and the young readers' enjoyment of them. So thanks, Anne-Marie. So, okay, so if there are any questions and answers, you know, feel free to pop them in the screen. And just to get started, maybe Sinead, would you like to give us some examples maybe of how you use the books in your role as a speech and language therapist? So.
Okay, hi everyone. Yeah, I'm Sinead Monaghan. I work with the speech and language therapy services in primary care services, and I also work in a language class in St. Patrick's Boys National School. And this is a small class for about 7 children. So 7 children to 1 teacher, and I'm assigned to the class 3 mornings a week. And this class is primarily for children who have severe speech and language difficulties. So they've no other kind of ongoing difficulties. It's essentially their main area of difficulty, speech and language. And I have to say, I absolutely love this project books. First of all, I have to compliment Darina in that it's really accessible, that anytime I've emailed or phoned, I get an immediate response practically, and I either get a bag of books handed to me, or when times were different and we weren't restricted by COVID, I would come to the library. And each year I kind of get a good sense of the kids, even who are in the class, or even primary care kids who I'm working with. And I've been able to pop in and hand choose books based on, you know, elements of where their struggles are. So for some of these kids, they're lacking hugely in confidence because people haven't understood them, because they couldn't communicate their messages. For some, they've got huge anxiety and huge worry. And I have been able to go in and just literally handpick books and bring them back to the class. What I think is fabulous as well, and Maria and Darina both references, is that you can actually come with a selection of books that often we as an adult sometimes can handpick books thinking a particular book is what will suit a child. But actually when it comes to it, they pick something quite different, and that really triggers something with them. And I have really learned that as part of it. And what has been lovely is bringing the selection of books, sometimes reading books with the group, and then particular kids will pick certain books that they really love and want to bring home and will hold on to it. Like what Anne-Marie was saying there, what I found is they hold on to it and want to read it every day or bring it home and have it until they reach a period that they're over it. Like I would have had one child at one stage who just had moved to a new class, new group, didn't know the friends, but the book that he kind of absolutely loved was this one, The Lonely Giant. And for a good 2 weeks, that was the book he wanted read. And something in that book clicked with him, that he just saw this huge giant, such a strong man, but he was so lonely. And he could identify with this until he got beyond that and got settled and had his friends made. And then the book, he moved to a different one. I think in terms of, we would have kids, in particular with COVID, some of the kids were extremely anxious and kind of got quite worried. And those Niall Breslin books that were referenced earlier, the other one that they loved was that Take 5. And Take 5 is where if they're feeling uncomfortable or they're feeling anxious, you get them to think about 5 really good moments in their life, or 5 times when they were really, really happy. And it just brings, it changes the whole feeling, and the anxiety goes where they start to remember these 5 moments. And the I say ooh and do say ah, absolutely, the kids have loved that in the class as a book. Fun book, really enjoyed it. Got the entire group were roaring laughing, great crack. And yet from a language point of view, it's actually a great book for building on auditory memory, on auditory processing skills, because they're having to listen and to retain the command and the instruction. So actually there's actually lovely kind of core language skills going on with that book, as well as it being pure fun and pure crack. And the Some Dogs Do, I love this one as well. It's really about, you know, sometimes we think we're not able to do things, or you can't, whether it's speech and language tactics, you can't do sounds. And this is just a lovely, simple little book about just having the confidence and being able to do it and give it a go, that you just never know, even though something is tricky. But it's a lovely one that they've used. So I have used it both in the class, and I've used it with my primary care kids, and I've used it in my own personal life with my kids, and I've used it for friends' kids. So I have to say, I love the books. I love how accessible they are. I love that we don't have to worry, essentially, that if a book gets lost and doesn't come back, that I'm not responsible, that I have a bit of leeway. Obviously, we mind them and return them and keep them, but that I'm not under pressure either from a library point of view. So I'm a huge fan.
That's great, Sinead. Thanks so much. So we might give you a break for another minute, even though we've a few more speech and language therapy related questions coming in. We let you get your breath, and we might turn the spotlight onto Linda there for a few minutes. So Linda, can you chat a bit about how you use the books in Westport, please?
Yes, hi everyone, I'm Linda. I'm the administrator in Westport Family Community Resource Centre, and we use the books in a variety of different ways, really. Absolutely love the project. We find it really, really effective. We would use them kind of in a more informal way probably than some of the other speakers. We use them in a few different ways, but one way is that we have an information support advocacy service, drop-in service. So somebody might come in and go through a separation or after a bereavement or something like that. It's not casework like with social work or anything like that, but they might pop in and out. We might help them with a few different things. So often if there's children involved, I might suggest a book or give them a bag and kind of handpick, like some of the other speakers said. But then we would have a play therapy service for children, so we would often use it alongside that. We might speak to the parents, speak to the play therapist, see what issues are presenting, and kind of pick we would use Ruby's Worry and things like that a lot as well. And then I suppose in a more generic way, we have a baby book club, and we use all of the books really, but we tend to use a lot of the kind of more generic themes, inclusion, diversity, a lot of the fun ones, the more interactive the better. So that's kind of mostly the toddler age group that we would work with in the baby book club, and not that we've had it in the last year obviously, but it was a pilot project we tried. We thought it would sit really well with the Book Magic. We don't exclusively use the Book Magic books, but we would use them mostly, to be honest, because we just find them, the quality is fantastic. They're very well chosen. They're all well illustrated. The kids love them, so we tend to go back to the same ones again and again. Which we use the OO one a lot. So yeah, how else do we use them? I suppose we have an adolescent counseling service as well, and I didn't think that we'd use them really with that, but again, like Anne-Marie said, we have the odd time, depending on the issue, especially with the younger teenagers. Maybe we would take teenagers from 12, so sometimes, especially with anger issues and things like that. And then on a personal note, I would use them a lot myself. I have a 2-year-old with a speech delay, and we're in speech and language therapy, so I bring them home a lot. I find them great. They're just really effective, and I'm glad to see so much passion for the project, because I would feel the same. And yeah, it's thank you for setting it up, because it's amazing. So we've just ordered. One thing we find is that, I suppose, because our service is so informal, that sometimes we would lend books to parents and then we don't get them back, which, you know, it happens. So, but it's great to be able to. I've just ordered another book, another bag from Darina, so there's no problem getting more, which is fantastic.
Okay, Linda, thanks so much. It's great to hear your insights into the project as well, and I suppose it really illustrates how versatile the project is. And I suppose for anyone that's online here listening to us today, I suppose our goal really is to have those books widely used and encourage parents and any other relevant people to read to children. So if you have any ideas around how we could develop the project further, please feel free to contact us. Just another question has come in. Darina, I might direct it to yourself. Somebody in another part of the country is wondering about plans for rollout nationally. So I suppose, as we said, this is a project that started up in Mayo, but Darina has been spreading the good news with her colleagues in the library service as well.
Yeah, I would happily bore anyone to tears about Book Magic. They just have to ask, and I'm like sending them lengthy emails and ringing them. Actually, Tipperary Library started their version of Book Magic. They've called it Lower Power, and they based it pretty much off kind of what we had done here in Mayo. There has been interest. I see a few colleagues nationally have been interested, have got in touch with me to find out how we did it and sort of who we liaised with. I don't see any reason why we couldn't. You know, as I said earlier, Libraries Ireland, our parent organisation, they're definitely interested. They think it's something that libraries could do. And I suppose, you know, we'll probably have Jarlath maybe chat to his CYPSC colleagues and see. I mean, look, the thing about this is it's a fabulous example of interagency work. You know, like everybody who came on board with this project has supported it to the nth degree, you know, and continues to support it and to promote it and to shout about it. And like, we wouldn't be doing that if we didn't see the value in it. And I mean, I think Anne-Marie's presentation alone, the feedback, that just shows the value in it. So yeah, nationally the books are available in Irish libraries also. That's the other thing to say, that's very important to point out. So any parent can go in and, armed with Book Magic list, can request any of those books. There's no charge. You get the books delivered to your home library and you can collect them there.
Okay, so hopefully that answers your question, and if it doesn't, feel free to contact any of us by email if you'd like maybe more cooperation maybe with your local library. I might direct another question at you, Sinead, if that's okay. Is there anything you'd like to share with people around reading the books and promoting speech and language development, using the books to promote speech and language development? Are there any kind of points maybe you'd like to make in relation to that specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big things is that often for kids who have severe speech and language difficulties, it has a knock-on effect on their confidence and their self-esteem. So I think these books are brilliant for supporting that and building confidence to help them to just express themselves a little bit more. I do know I worked with a couple of kids who would have chosen not to speak or to whisper, and there's a lovely book in it called I Wish I Could Roar, and that was just a lovely supplementary book to support them in terms of developing the speech and just speaking a bit louder and having fun around it, really. In terms of doing the books, I mean, we would always support turning the book into a conversation, having a dialogue, chatting about the characters and kind of identifying nearly with their needs and maybe playing that role. I would run a little narrative program in school with the kids where you kind of talk through different questions you might use and build up difficulty. And I would link that with, even join that with parents and that I'd send home some of guidelines on running that. And we'd use the books just to open dialogue more, turn it into conversation and talk about the feelings really of the characters in the book or things they might say, if that answers it.
Yeah. That's great, Sinead. Thanks a million. Just to any of the other panelists, are there any other points you'd like to make in relation to the project? Or any other comments? You're all okay? Yeah. Okay, so
sorry, I make one, sorry.
Yeah.
I was just typing it as you were asking us there. If there are people listening who work with families where they're thinking, well, these books are no good to me because I've found some families where literacy is an issue, or language, you know, if families can't quite follow the English language books. We have a lot. Darina has a big selection of picture books that we can give to families where we can encourage them and talk through with them about reading from the pictures and creating stories from the imagination. So it's not just for those that are able to read the English language.
Great, Anne-Marie, that's a great point. Thank you. Anything else before we start to wrap it up? No? Okay, so I just want to thank you all for your participation today. We really appreciate it, and we hope you found this event of benefit to you. And like I say, if you have any further questions, you can, please feel free to get back in touch with us. I just have a number of thank yous, of course. I want to thank Sinead and Linda, the two panelists. Your contributions were very, very valuable and complemented Darina and Anne-Marie's presentations really well. So thanks so much for your time and sharing your wisdom and information on the project. I want to thank Anne-Marie for her brilliant passion for the project, and I suppose Anne-Marie's commitment and stories from the project always spurred us on further and further to try and develop the project. I really want to thank Darina, who has spent, I don't know who has the correct tally in the number of hours Darina has spent rummaging through these books. Darina has really set the tone for the project. She's had a really clear vision for the project, what it should look like, what kind of books would be useful. And we can all vouch for Darina's effort. We've all gone in nearly tripping over her books of book magic books, and she's a great advocate for the project beyond Mayo as well as locally, and is really, really so open to developing the project further, and obviously making the library of use to everybody. So thanks so much for that. I want to thank Jarlath Munley, the Mayo Children and Young People Services Committee, for organising this event. and Jenna, who is a student with Jarlath at the moment and has also contributed to this. And finally, the usual list of thank yous. I want to thank Claire Murray for Mayo County Council, who's doing her very best to keep us on track from an IT point of view. Wasn't the easiest job, Claire. I'm sorry. You'll know to avoid the job the next time around. So I hope you all have a lovely morning. Thanks so much for your contribution, and thanks for your comments and questions. And I hope the sunshine continues and you all have a nice day.